Steve, thanks so much. The Capital Region and beyond holding Juneteenth celebrations today, recognizing the end of slavery in the United States in 1865. The news arriving to enslaved African Americans in Texas 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863. Tonight, I speak with NAACP New York Executive Director Chris Alexander about those origins and the holiday's impact on today.
Federal holiday. I guess, how does that sit, knowing that this is now expanded? What does that mean that, it goes beyond just the Black community? It's everyone that's here to recognize this.
Well, I mentioned just now that we take this moment to celebrate and talk about Black history, but you're right, and even in your framing of your question, this is American history, right? It's an important part of our story. It's an important moment of us shedding away really that original sin of the founding of our country. Now, of course, that was a step and not the realization of the promise, but I think it means the world. I think that it's important for folks to have to, regardless of their connection to the community, they're Black, they're white, if they're an American, to understand that this is a part of our history. This is a part of our story. And there was a moment in time where people who did not have their own agency were notified that this promise of what America could be was being partially delivered to them. And that was a moment of celebration. So I think it's important, actually, that I know a lot of folks kind of push back on the federal holiday, just saying that it kind of gets away from the purpose of us celebrating as Black New Yorkers, as Black Americans, us celebrating this moment. But I actually think that's kind of counterintuitive. The only way that we can really learn from our history is to live in it, is to acknowledge it, and sometimes it's to celebrate it, even if it's dark.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but then you mentioned the fight continues today, and preserving that history, I think, probably has become even more important in this day and age, right? When you see some of the initiatives that have come through this administration of looking at different ways, I guess, to look at that history, right? At the end of the day, I think you could allude to that of being very applicable to this time.
Yeah, ignoring history is never a good way for either a democracy or a society to move forward. You're just doomed to repeat the same mistakes. And I think that this current administration has, in Washington to be specific, has done all that it could to erase history. Even the removing of Jackie Robinson's story from federal websites. It's sticking our head in the sand, but it doesn't serve the purpose that I think that folks hope it does. Running from that history doesn't empower anybody. Instead, it's important that we embrace it, that we learn from it. My hope is that as this, the celebration of the federal holiday continues, that people start to dive deeper into that story, because it's also important just to go back historically, with Juneteenth as a celebration, it wasn't just that the lack of communication technology, took some time to communicate. No, it was that folks in Texas specifically were holding on to slavery as a practice and as an institution. And it wasn't until the generals who were fighting there surrendered that folks were able to actually celebrate what had been decided as the change in course of history with the Emancipation Proclamation and then later with the 13th Amendment. So I just want to acknowledge that it's also a moment and a reminder that until we have to keep fighting and to keep moving forward, both as a society and as Black people who are trying to build a fair, more equitable society.
More of that conversation will be available on YouTube tomorrow.